What's going on, guys? It's Nero here at DAPPS Center.
The channel where you can find the best crypto projects and the best dApps where you can earn a passive income and learn about all the other things you could do with your precious little cryptocurrencies. Be sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Now let's get to it, shall we?
All right, everyone, welcome here. I am doing another live AMA Superbonds.finance here with Vishal. He is actually the founder of this project. Hi, Vishal, how are you doing today? Please tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and about the project.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. So my name is Vishal. I'm one of the founders of Superbonds. We've been in and around the space for some time right now, for a while, and we're basically, we've come to this point where we've now launched a project called Superbonds. We're quite excited about it. We think it's very different from the existing platforms, and think that there's a novel use case really that applies to just about everyone.
That is awesome. So yeah, I kind of did look over the white paper a little bit and the project itself, but so what is Superbonds? Why is it different from any other project?
Yeah, so basically, one of the key things we started realizing very quickly in this space is that there's this fascination with yield, right? Who doesn't like yield? You want to make as much money as you can. You want to do it with the least amount of risk that you can, right? But we found that there were limited ways in generating fixed yield. So, what do we mean by this, right? So right now, if you want a certainty of yield, what can you do? You have to give up your cash, right? You have to give up your cash and you have to trust somebody else, right? That means either you're going to go park it at one of the big lending desks or whatever it is, or you're going to go onto an exchange, you're going to buy some coins, sell some future. Great. You know what? You get that yield so long as they're solvent, right? Which is not an easy assumption these days, but they're not shut down or something of that sort. Then you move over to DeFi. And it's like, well, yeah, we love our yield, right? And it's kind of like, yeah, APY is 2,000%, 3,000%, 50,000%. It's fake, right? Like we all know it's fake. By the time you try to realize anything, it's gone. It's not really an annual percentage yield. It lasts for seconds, right? SPY, probably a bad acronym. But the point is that there's no way to generate a fixed yield in DeFi really, because what's happening is that, your yield is denominated in some other token, which fluctuates. As that fluctuates, your yield fluctuates. So you don't really know what you're going to get. Because you can't really know what you're going to get, it kind of messes with you in terms of using what you own as collateral, right? So imagine that your LP token or whatever it is, right? What is it going to be worth 6 months from now? I don't know. It depends on what the pool liquidity is like. It depends on what values it accrues, what farmed rewards accrue to it, all that kind of stuff, right? You don't know. So we said, okay, let's solve for this. Can you self-custody a fixed yield? Because the important thing is, if you can, then you create certainty of value. If you know today something is worth 9 grand and 6 months down the road, it is going to be worth 10 grand in dollars, nothing else, no funny stuff. Not only does it give you peace of mind, gives you certainty, but that certainty now allows it to gives it a new attribute to that bond, right? We call it a bond. It allows it to kind of become collateral, right? Because take, for instance, right now, you want to borrow against your assets that you own, right? Even a simple asset, like say you have ETH, right? And you say, hey, I want to borrow some dollars. I've got $10,000 for the ETH. I want to go borrow some dollars. What am I going to do? Well, I'll go over to one of these popular lending platforms. I'll deposit my ETH, and they'll say, "Oh, great, it's worth $10,000 today. You know what? We'll give you 4 grand. 4 grand. What's up with that? Like in the real world, you expect some real cash, if not more than that, right? Well, you get 4 grand plus. If ETH really starts dropping in value, like you should be concerned because we might liquidate you, right? And so now you're like, wait, hold on a second. What if I take that 4 grand and I put it into something that I can't really take out very quickly? What's going to happen, right? It's not the way the market should work, right? This is kind of like a haphazard way of kind of forcing something to happen. It's not a true credit market in a sense. So what we said is fine. Let's solve for this, because if we can have a bond, right, and you go away with it, right, you pay the 9 grand right now, we give you that NFT, right, and then this will come to the platform in a second, and you go away and it's worth 10 grand. Well, everybody knows it's going to be worth 10 grand. They could lend against it. There's no declining value of some party token in there that's going to reduce what its terminal value is going to be. That's the value prop, right? You have a fixed yield in your custody You could do whatever the hell you want with it. You could even use it as collateral. And so by creating that, we think we're creating something that's probably been missing from the ecosystem for some time. The mechanism is quite straightforward, very much how I kind of described it. You know, you'd come to the platform and you say, hey, 1 month yield, okay, 12% annualized. So that means let's inflate the numbers. I give you 99 grand. That means in 30 days, I'm going to get 100 grand. Yep. Okay. How do I know that? Here you go. You're issued an NFT, right? I mean, fancy word NFT really just means non-fungible, single mint, et cetera, all that stuff. In this particular case, it's a financial NFT. You own this thing. It's yours. The smart contract will always know you're owed 100 grand 30 days from now. Full stop. No ifs, ands, or buts. You come back 2 years from now, you're getting your 100 grand, right? Come back 10 days from now, you're going to get something, some sort of prorated value, but you'll always be able to know what it is you're getting. You don't have to do it, right? But the point is that you're guaranteed that, right? And so that collateral is created. Against that, who's underwriting this thing? We're not doing it manually. There's no human discretion involved here, right? The beauty of this is we're doing it on chain, fully transparent, and everybody can see it, right? We have LPs underwriting this, much like you have LPs in a lot of different pools, right? The way our LPs differ is they're basically signing up to say, hey, we're going to give away that interest rate, right? So in this particular case, we're going to give away that 1 grand in 30 days. And it's just like, well, okay, hold on a second. If you keep doing that, then over time, we're going to deplete to zero. Why the hell would I do that? Why would I become an LP, right? Very interesting question. Very valid question. Sorry if I preempted it. But the reason you do it is because the rewards you get against it are meaningfully higher, materially higher. And there's 3 particular forms, and you'll see this in our white paper. We have something called our Super B token, which just launched today, by the way, for trading. It's live now. Wow. Trading on a centralized exchange. It launched on MXC. It's trading around, I think, 90 to 100 million, fully diluted. The market cap's like 6 million. So it's micro cap, right? Early, if you want to check it out. So
very early, yeah. It launched today on the 18th. So
that's
you get
right.
XC, the SB token.
Yep, that's right, exactly. So these LPs, coming back to it, will get the SB token. Fine, it's part of the emissions rewards. The SB, by the way, just to go off on a slight tangent, is a gas, right? It's used for every function on the platform. You want to buy a bond, you want to sell a bond, you want to check the value of a bond, you want to transfer a bond, it's burned, right? Limited supply, and that's how it kind of comes out, right? So it's very critical. It's not one of those things where, this is the backbone of the ecosystem. No, this thing really is. You can't actually do a transaction without it. So that's the way to kind of think about the token. So the LPs, well, yeah, you'll get your Super B token. Fine, great. You get to share the fees. Okay, these are all templated models. Pools out there exist across the universe that kind of show us that these models kind of work. But we added something cool on top, which I think is kind of our unique differentiating factor, right? What we do is we say, okay, somebody came and they bought a bond. They paid 99 grand with it. Now the system's saying, I've got 99 grand potentially for 30 days. That's capital inefficient. What am I doing here? I need to do something with it. Well, you need to take a risk, a risk-averse position, but you need to be defensive, whatever it is, but you need to do something with it, right? So the system programmatically, automatically, without humans intervening, et cetera, so forth. There are kill switches, don't worry. Basically says, okay, what can I do with it? So there's a predefined universe, right? Whereby those dollars can be turned into other stable coins, so no market price risk, and used to farm yield for the benefit of LPs, right? So if I break that down a little, right? What it'll say is, okay, we've got a universe where we can go and farm dollar stable coin yield. Okay. It's already been predefined. The system knows where that universe is. It's cross-chain as well. We actually use Wormhole to go cross-chain. This is quite cool, actually. And what you will see is that, and then there are stable coins defined, et cetera, whatever. Now the system says, great, you told me where I can go. Where may I go? Because I need to go and generate some yield now, right? Now it uses an advanced risk framework, and it gets quite involved. And this is our background, by the way, right? I mean, I spent over 10 years trading, macro, EM, FX, all that kind of fun stuff. Start out in risk, et cetera, co-founders, et cetera, quant risk trading. So we know this stuff, right? And we basically said, look, we have to basically mitigate rug risk here, because you can't simply, if you say hypothetically got $10 million to invest, and you go for the highest yield and the TVL is small, you kind of get screwed if you become a large part of that pool, right? So how do you distribute this capital? Yeah, we want to maximize the yield, but we need to go places where we quote unquote consider it safe, right? Well, how do we define that? And just to kind of give you a high level idea of how we're thinking about this risk, right? It's like saying, okay, well, I can go into so and so and so and so, but if I were to do that, what percentage of my capital is being deployed to that pool? Is that a check mark or is that a no-go? Great, it's a check mark. Now, if that were to be permitted, what percentage of that pool would I become? So that's a different question, right? Oh, is that a check mark or is that a no-go, right? So you have so many, I guess, contingent questions to answer before capital is actually deployed. And the beauty is it's done programmatically. It's automatically. We're not simply saying, hey, by the way, hold on a second. I'm going to take this money and I'm going to go sell some puts on Deribit, right? Well, not, there's somebody out there doing it, right? You lose full visibility. How do you know what price people are selling at? How do you, the point is to keep it on chain. We're going cross chain. We're putting this thing and saying, okay, look, on Solana, we're built on Solana, we could get to Y. We can go X, Y, and Z. We've identified our platforms where we think, there's now reasonable levels of risk, right? But we're going cross chain, right? Which means we are bringing dollar stable coin yields from across the universe and blockchain onto Solana. That's quite cool because you don't have to go do it, right? So if you want those yields, just become an LP on our platform. If you don't want those yields and you want something else, and you should, because you always have some sort of cash sitting in your wallet, buy a bond, right? It's as good as cash. It's better than cash, right? It's the analog becomes, and I'm repeating myself. I'm sure I've said this somewhere, where how much cash do you put in the mattress versus how much do you put in a bank when interest rates are 10% and take out a debit card, right? Well, you're going to do something, right, with the debit card, right? That scenario. So that's what we're advocating here.
Right. Pretty seems easy to say that fixed yields are a missing component of DeFi, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, definitely. And we think this is the right time to be thinking about it, because I think people are finally people have been getting fed up with like the misleading high yields for some time, right? But I think that the broader audiences have kind of just recognized it. At the same time, because fixed yields in this space, so yields for cash as we would call it, are structurally high or much higher than say the TradFi world, we think this is a good invitation to those who are newer to DeFi, right? You come into DeFi and you're like, okay, people are making all kind of money, right? Okay, how do I get involved? Where do I get started, right? Am I going to press the wrong button? Is it gone into ether forever, right? Whatever it is. We have a simple UI, a simple UX. You really don't need to know anything. You come in and you say, okay, this is what you're paying. This is what you're getting. Here's your bond. Go do what you want, right? And that's that. That's your yield. Nothing else to figure out. We do everything on the back end, or we or the system does everything on the back end. So we think that that's a strong invitation. And yes, it helps kind of plug this gap, which is, I think, been quite obvious for some time now.
Right. Yeah. So why Solana? I mean, this might be obvious to some folks, but Solana's still a newer project out there, and some people still don't know what it is. So why Solana?
Yeah, look, when we were playing with this thing, right, and getting this live, we said to ourselves, we actually weren't thinking of DeFi. We have to, to be fully transparent. We were in the centralized space for some time, and we said, it would be cool to put this on a blockchain, but we need a performant blockchain. When we say performant blockchain, it meant we need a real-time blockchain, more or less, right? Because we're going to have real-time market movements. A trader's blockchain. We started playing around with Solana when it was just getting hot, and we said, wow, this could actually kind of work, right? I think the way to answer that question is why not anything else, as opposed to why Solana, right? So why not ETH, right? Why can't the main contract sit on ETH? Inconsistency, right? Fees are obviously a part of it, but speed, inconsistency, the ability to update things as quickly as we need to, that will kind of play into it quite a bit. Even with, it doesn't matter which oracles you're plugging in, all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't. It's not clean. It didn't work, right? Can we go to the layer twos? Yeah, definitely. There's scope for that. We're chain agnostic at the end of the day. This is why we have Wormhole, right? We're building through Wormhole and we're going across chain anyways, right? The goal is not to basically become a mini or maxi or whatever and be like, we stand only in this camp. The goal is to say, look, reasonably speaking, we're opportunists. Where's the money? We want the money, right? Where are we going to go get it from? Solana lent itself very well for that application. That's why we built out on Solana, and it works. So that's a simple answer.
Right. Okay. So why not Binance Smart Chain?
Well, look, I don't think it was the natural option for us to begin with. I mean, look, BSC runs an EVM, right? It's very simple for us to kind of deploy that. I mean, look, a lot of times it's a story with a lot of these bridges as well, right? Oh, we connect all the chains. Well, you're connecting all EVM chains. It doesn't do anything, right? Like they're basically the same contract structure. So why not go BSC? Maybe it could have done something. We think it's slightly more centralized than to our liking out of the gates. We think that there's probably an overhang from all things affiliated with it, even if not official, then unofficial. And it's not really whether or not that kind of gets in the way of day to day. It's more like having that Damocles sword always kind of hanging over your head. Well, if you're going to do it from scratch, you're going to kind of say, okay, who's the best candidate here, right? By process of elimination, and that's how we arrived at Solana.
Gotcha. Well, you did mention something about Crosschain. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So basically, to break it down, right now, Solana is a new ecosystem. Everybody knows that in terms of, the DApps that are, out there, but there's a lot being built, right? And it's happening every day, but we're going live in the next, 6 to 7 weeks, roughly speaking, depending on when the audit kind of completes. Well, when we do, we have to generate the yield, right? The yield generating places within Solana itself are fairly limited from what we would call acceptable risk propositions, right? For where we were going to deploy the capital. Some of it is still slightly unproven, right? If that is the case, where do you go? Where do you make this yield? Because you need to make the LPs whole, right? So if it's not on Solana, where's it going to be? Oh, there's Ethereum is quite established in this, in generating yield, right? We know that there's a lot of DApps there that are quite monstrous in terms of high yields. So we said, well, can we tap those yields from Ethereum? And the answer is yes, right? Our program is able to say, okay, I have X amount of capital, right? Here's my involvement in the Solana ecosystem. Here's my involvement across other ecosystems. Therefore, I can set aside X amount of capital to go to those other ecosystems. Oh, ETH. Okay, this is how much I can allocate to ETH. Fine, great. What stablecoin do I have? How do I convert my USDC SPL into native through the bridge? Get that into the right DApp, right? Whether it's changing into the right stablecoin or whatever it is, and start farming that yield and making sure that when there's a call to that contract, it kind of comes all the way back as well, right? So that entire process is automated, if you can think about it. Like, that's the cool thing, right? There's no human at the end of it going, yes, click. I mean, again, everything is kind of training wheels, and we can kind of intervene in the process early on if we really needed to. But the point is that you or anybody else can just monitor the explorers, and you'll see how the capital is moving. That we think is quite important. So it just gives you an idea of how transparent our project is really.
That's good. I mean, I think transparency is very important, and definitely in DeFi now. I mean, especially with the decentralization is obviously a very important factor as well, and that's what really gives it its value and its use case. So yeah, I definitely agree. So what are some big items on the roadmap this year? What are some plans ahead? Any big announcements coming up?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're doing all kinds of things. To the ones that I could probably speak of, we're quite active in building what we want to call an unsecured lending platform, which I think is quite attractive. I mean, look, right now, when we come back to the original question of bonds and credit and so forth, who's really able to access capital in this space without posting capital, right? So in that instance, we said, hey, if you had $1,000 of ETH, you could borrow $400. Anybody can do that, right? But there are a few people, organizations, entities, individuals with the right amount of clout or whatever that can go to certain desks and just borrow capital and without posting a penny, right? Well, what we see right now is the increase in number of organizations that would probably benefit from unsecured capital, but there being a lack of a programmatic process whereby they can actually access that capital. Point being, right, you're at the behest of the lender. Okay, I need to borrow, $10,000. Well, here's the interest rate. Do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? No, hold on a second. I'm going to ask somebody else. Okay, all these people you've done corporate onboarding with, you've done various kinds of things, et cetera, so forth. But think about the new entities, DAOs, tribes, right? A lot of different organizations where people are kind of just coming together to act collectively for a common economic pursuit, right? Well, they may want to raise capital to buy a golf course or whatever it is, right? And they say, hey, look, we've been around for 2.5 years. We've got $5 million in the bank. There's 1,000 of us, right? Well, to us, that naturally says there is, less risk of a bad actor kind of, getting their way. Like they're not going to run away with the money, much like an individual would, right? Because they have something to lose here now, right? If they're thinking long-term DAO, and collectively, we also believe that as you increase the number of humans involved in any organization, the collective thought will probably not let the moral compass spin too much, right? Like you're not gonna shaft anybody. Or the likelihood of you doing it is very low or much lower, right? Without the word getting out. And so we don't think anything exists to service that yet. So whereby Superbonds, a entity such as a DAO or something, and this is how we envision it, will be able to come and basically say, hey, we want to raise some money. Okay, well, in the early days, there will be, there will be a bouncer at the gate that basically says you can do it, you can't do it, right? We need to kind of go through the on-chain data, but eventually it gets automated such that the DAO basically says, hey, guys, we want to raise $5 million. We want to buy X amount of whatever, and people are able to see, okay, fine, this DAO has been around for 18 months. They've got $7 million. They've got 200 people. Whatever it is, these are a number of governance decisions they actually pass. This is how they do it, blah, blah, blah. They're willing to pay, 15% and pay a monthly coupon of another 50 basis points and then basically, throw in some native rewards. Do I want to fund them, right? Well, they may never pay you back a penny. They may not, right? That's how the real world works, right? The corporate bond market, right? But they may pay you back. In fact, they probably will pay you back, right? And so you fund them, right? Much like you would fund anybody else. And then it becomes the same process, you get your money on time, et cetera, so forth. You may not get it. But the point is that now you have a platform whereby issuance is possible. And once those bonds are gotten by you, whoever funded them, they become tradable, right? And right on our platform, where it'll be like, well, listen, these guys were supposed to pay back. They really didn't. I'm not really sure. Maybe I want to sell my bond, right? Or somebody comes in and says, "Wow, they paid that high an interest rate. That's amazing. And that's what you're getting on it. Can I buy it off of you? You're getting 15. I'll pay you 18 or whatever it is, right? Done. So basically getting the credit market going, right? And we think that so that we're very excited about this. So this is a Q2 prospect. We've started working on it quite heavily already. So just iterating as we speak.
Awesome. That's very exciting. So tell us more. I want to know more about the token, the SB token. What's the market cap? What's the valuation? What's the future? Any future exchanges coming up that you're able to say?
Yeah. Well, with those, you're always signing stuff, right? So I'm not really able to say, where it may be listing in the, in the near future or anything of that sort. Our biggest issue up until now was making sure that, hey, look, there's some liquidity behind this thing, right? So originally we had, we listed a radium pool. It did, it was kind of showing that there's liquidity barrier. We need to kind of see this thing get going. Today, it literally just listed on MXC where there's sufficient volume flowing through, and I think it'll be building in the days to come. The token itself, look, there's 10 billion token, right? I wouldn't be put off by the number because a majority of this, as you'll see in the white paper, is coming through protocol emissions, rewards, right? For when you're doing things, et cetera, so forth. And they're not coming at once, they're coming over a multi-year time span. So you're dealing with 40% really upfront, right? And when I say upfront, that too is over multi-year emissions, right? In terms of, unlocks, this, that, all that kind of stuff. It's designed in such a way, right, that as the platform usage increases, we have this thing called Superbonds. Yields given back to bond buyers increase, which means there should be a greater utility of buying those bonds, which means there's more transactions, which means that there are more Super B that are being burned every single time. And so, it's a gas fee. And it's limited in supply, right? I mean, if you really wanted to like stretch your imagination, ETH is a gas and it wasn't finite in supply. Did anybody even really know the supply of ETH, or do they still know it? I'm just being facetious, but the point is that you have fully diluted valuation and you have market cap, right? So right now, I think we're trading at what, like 0.09. Sorry, 9/10 of a cent, right, or 1 cent roughly. So at 1 cent. It would be 100 million fully diluted. And we're talking about a decade-long type of fully diluted valuation. If you look at market cap, that puts it around $5 million right now, roughly speaking. So micro, absolutely micro. So if you're talking about getting early, like this is early, we just listed. So.
Right. This is as early as you're going to be able to get. So
yeah.
Well, guys, that pretty much wraps it up here for our live AMA with Superbonds Finance. You guys be able to find all the links down in the description box. Be sure to join their communities as well. Vishal, thank you for being here on our channel. Is there anything else that you'd like us to say? Any last minute things you'd like to say to our viewers?
Well, look, stay tuned for updates. Join the socials. I'm sure you'll get the links. There's quite a bit happening, a lot of activity on a daily basis. The updates will, come all at once at times. And if you want to stay on top of it, Twitter, Telly, Discord, we're active. Come in, ask questions. We'll be happy to answer anything you have.
That is awesome. So, guys, just a little fair warning, a little disclaimer here. I do get paid to make these videos. This is not financial advice, so please always do your own research, and that investing in projects, especially projects like these, do involve risk and you potentially lose all your money. Now, if you're enjoying this video, please give us a thumbs up. And also, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that way you get notified every time that I go live and when I post new videos. Well, stick around, guys. I do have more videos to come and more projects to talk about. It is Nero here at DAPP Center saying so long and enjoy the rest of your day. Adios.